Justice is important, isn't it? We all want people to do what is right, we all want to be treated fairly, and we all want other people to be treated fairly. And yet in the trial of Jesus, we see the ultimate injustice done. You know, I was on jury service in the summer, and even before you get to the court, you get given a whole pack of information about what you can and what you can't do. You're not allowed to check out any of the cases on social media, that you mustn't talk to anyone outside the courtroom. And then when you go into the room on the first day, they sit you down and they give you this really serious talk. Because they want justice to be done. Whoever is on trial, whatever crime they may or may not have committed, they want to find the right answer. They want to find out whether that person actually committed the crime or whether actually they're completely innocent and they should be released. Because justice is important, isn't it? All of us cry out for justice, and yet Jesus is put on trial. And he is convicted. Even in this, we see injustice done. The Jewish leaders, the ones who were responsible for leading people to God, the ones who were responsible for setting the example, the ones who had cried out against Jesus when he healed people on the Sabbath day, who said that he was breaking the law, were now breaking the law themselves. You know, in Matthew 26, we are told that when Jesus went before the high priests, went before the Sanhedrin, the council at that time, that they were actively seeking people to tell lies about him, to bring false witness, to say things about Jesus that weren't true, because they couldn't find anything to convict Jesus of otherwise. Jesus, the man who never sinned, who never did anything wrong, it would have been completely impossible to find anything to bring against him. So they had to lie. What huge injustice. And we go on and we see even more injustice done. These high priests, these men who were meant to be pillars of the community, who were meant to be the ones who were leading the Jewish people, who were bringing the people closer to God, broke so many of their own laws during this trial. The men who'd come against Jesus, who had called him out for healing on the Sabbath, for actually doing good, were now breaking their own laws. You see, no Jewish trial was meant to happen at night time. When someone was brought to trial, they were meant to have somebody to represent them, and yet Jesus had none. Where someone was sentenced to death, a whole day was meant to have passed before the sentence was carried out. And yet for Jesus, only a few hours passed. There are many other laws that they broke in bringing Jesus to trial. This was the ultimate injustice. Jesus, who had done no wrong, sentenced to death, an excruciating death, death by crucifixion, was completely innocent. And maybe you're going through things right now that feel unfair. Maybe people are saying things about you that just aren't true. Maybe you have looked at the world around you and gone, this is not fair. That person did not deserve that. Well, we serve a God who understands injustice. We serve a God who understands the intense pain of being mistreated, of being falsely accused. And yet God uses that injustice for good. God uses the injustice that was done in the trial of Jesus to bring salvation to the whole world. That when we decide to follow Jesus, when we decide to put our trust in him, that we might have a relationship with God, that our relationship with God can be restored and we can spend our eternity with him. How incredible is that, that God uses what was intended for harm and turns it into good. So if you are facing intense injustice at the moment, why don't you cry out to God? Because he hears you, he cares about you. If you've never decided to put your trust in Jesus, then make today the day that you decide to go to God, to admit that you've done things wrong, to admit that actually you are not perfect, and to choose to put your trust in Jesus. Because he, the God who did no wrong, who suffered injustice for our sake, wants to have a relationship with you today.